Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Is This Thing On? So, I don't quite know why I haven't talked about this because it's literally happening this week, ladies and gentlemen, and that is me starting graduate school. Let me just say, graduate school has been in the making since before I even graduated from undergraduate studies. Um, since before I even got my bachelor's. I think it was probably like my last semester. I was 19. I was about to graduate, but I ended up getting a D in one of my classes. So I had to retake it, and then I decided to just graduate in the spring with my best friend at the time. Anyways, so yeah, like I have known about graduate school for a very long time, even before I went into college, and even as I was in high school. I didn't have a traditional high school experience. I went to a dual enrollment school, which means that while I was taking high school classes, I was also taking college classes. So I was in a college setting from the ages of 14 all the way to now. And so I'm not a stranger to college. When I went in to do my bachelor's, I already knew what to do. I knew what was expected. Um, I knew a lot of stuff. And so college was never anything like strange for me. Both of my parents went to college. It was always in the cards for me. Um, it was always something that I wanted. Um, I love going to school. I love education. I love learning. And I knew since I was 16 years old that I wanted to study psychology. And I knew that I was going to eventually have to go to graduate school for psychology because let me just tell you, the struggle is real. Um, if you only get a bachelor's in psychology. If any of you are out there that are listening are psychology majors, sociology majors, social work majors, criminal justice majors, any of the social sciences, you get my drift, right? It is extremely hard to have a job in that field with just a bachelor's. I cannot tell you how many different jobs I've had in the last 5 years that involve literally nothing in my career. Like the closest thing is me working in childcare. And while I do love children and I have been able to, you know, put some of those critical thinking skills and apply it to my job in childcare, it's not exactly hitting the nail on the hammer with what I am supposed to do with my career. And the closest thing I achieved to that was almost 3 years ago now. I had just graduated college in May of 2017, so it's gonna be 3 years, guys. I literally can't believe it's gonna be 3 years since I graduated college with my bachelor's. Oh, if you don't know, by the way, so I went into school. So here's my undergrad journey, and now I'm gonna tell you about my graduate journey. This episode is about graduate school, by the way. But let me just give you a little glimpse into my undergrad life first, and then we'll talk about grad school. So, like I said, I did not have a traditional high school upbringing. I was in eighth grade when, a very interesting opportunity was offered to me. So, I had two schools that I wanted to go to that came to my middle school, and they were looking for students to come to these two schools, and they were very selective. They only chose about 100 kids out of all the other applicants that they got, and they would only choose about 110, 120 would be the max. So you can imagine how small my graduating class was. So I got to either have the chance to go to IB, International Baccalaureate, and to go to the high school that I ended up going to, which is Achiever Early College High School. And I originally was dead set that I wanted to go to IB because I had gone there for like a little workshop when I was like in 6th or 7th grade. Um, and I really liked the curriculum. I really liked the school. I thought it was awesome. Um, it was a lot of homework, though, a lot of work, a lot of projects that, you know, were going to be assigned to me. It was a very challenging and rigorous curriculum, the IB curriculum. If you've ever been in the IB curriculum, my respects to you because I've heard it's a lot of work. But it's recognized internationally, so I think that's pretty cool. And now they're, in addition to getting the IB diploma, they're also offering college credit with that too. So I think that that would have been pretty cool to, double whammy both. But I ended up going with early college, Achieve Early College High School, because the acceptance letter for them came sooner. So I would have been fine with either or, but I really wanted to make sure that the high school that I was going to be the best fit for me. And I ended up choosing Achieve because, again, the acceptance letter for them came to me first. And also, I've talked about this in previous, excusez-moi, I've talked about this in previous, like, episodes, or maybe the previous episode that I did about talking about like my mental health. But I went through a lot of bullying in middle school and elementary school, and going into high school, my mentality was like, okay, which school can I go to get the furthest away from all these people that bullied me, that are gonna probably be with me in high school as well, and also bully me. So if you're from the Valley, 956 RGV, there's three main high schools in McAllen. There's Mackay, which is McAllen High School. There's Memorial High School, and then there's Nicky Rowe. I was zoned to Mackay, which is the Bulldogs. I was supposed to go to Mackay. That's my home school, but because of the unique circumstances presented to me, and because I was a little brainiac in middle school, I ended up going to Early College High School, Achieve Early College High School in McAllen, next to STC. It is no longer in that location anymore, though, because Lincoln Middle School became now what is my school. Because when I went to school there, we did not have a physical building. All we had was portable buildings, portables. And it would rain, it would get flooded, it would be cold. Like, we did not have like an actual, like, tangible building. Like, we just kind of had to walk around into each classroom, and it was on an open field and whatnot. And it was like that for all the years that I went there. That's how I went to school. Um, but it was cool because I got to be on a college campus for like the very, very first time. I was at a community college, SCC, and I got the opportunity to receive my associate's degree while I was still in high school. And I actually got my associate's degree before I even graduated high school. So that was pretty cool, like, to be able to like say that and actually obtain that. Now it's a lot more common. Like, when I was first graduating, it was like a big thing. Um, and I think I was like the fifth graduating class from that school, fourth or fifth. I don't quite remember. But I graduated in 2015. Oh, 5 years is coming up for my high school reunion. Dang, I cannot believe that. And so yeah, I got to do that. I got to go to a community college and just take classes and do that. And you know uh it was challenging, I will admit. It was hard. I had to sacrifice my love for being in choir and for being in extracurricular activities, because my school did not have any of that. We had like little clubs here and there, but it was nothing compared to what's at a traditional high school, like band and choir and orchestra and art and drama and music. And you get my drift. If I had gone to Lamar Academy, the IB school, which again stands for International Baccalaureate, um, I could have had the chance to do choir or band or whatever extracurricular activity I wanted. My counselors told me really late in my junior year that I could have signed up for extracurricular activities, and I would just need someone to take me to my home school, uh, which was Mackay, or I could have done anywhere else, and I could have done choir there. I could have done sports. I could have done that. I was in track for like a little bit, track and cross country, my sophomore year, um, and I ended up doing that instead of taking PE. Counted like for like a semester of PE because we only had to take 1 year of PE, I think. So it counted as a PE credit, to have if we were in sports and stuff. So I remember waking up every single morning at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock to get up and run because that's how early we had to be up for cross country. We trained every morning around 5:30, 6:30 in the morning, and we had to be done by like probably like 7, maybe even before that. Like we woke up super early. Anyways, I had to be up super early to run every morning, about 6 miles, like 3 miles in and 3 miles back, um, in like in like a time frame of like 30 minutes. So that's like 5 minutes. Yeah, like 5 minutes per mile. So you could just imagine how demanding and rigorous that was. I loved it though, but my coach was an absolute jerk. And even though I was committed and I went to practice every day, and then I did the same thing for track, I trained, I went to practice and everything. And I had been doing track and cross country since I was in middle school. I did tennis for a little bit, but I sucked. So I really stuck with cross country and track because I loved it. Um, but my coach absolutely sucked, and I never got to compete. I never got to do anything like that. He straight up told me and my mom that I was not fit to do cross country or track. But, anyways, so that's a little, brief history into what I did in high school. I also took up martial arts again when I was in high school, and then I ended up like quitting right before I went into college because it was going to interfere with college and whatnot. But I do miss martial arts. I've done a lot of stuff throughout the years, but that could be for another podcast episode. But yeah, so I finished up high school there. I got my associates, and then my associates was over 60 hours of college credit. I think I transferred with like 75 hours, which is more than half of what the degree was already uh was just more than half of what the degree was already, because I think most bachelor's degrees, most of them, it could be different in certain circumstances, but mine was 120 hours. I ended up graduating with 125, I believe, because I had like extracurriculars and all that stuff and extra classes that I took. um and so I finished college really, really, really freaking fast. Like, I started in August of 2015. I was basically done. I was literally done by fall of 2016 and was set to graduate fall of 2016. I literally had my graduation ticket. I had bought my gown. I had like already paid for graduation. It was already set. And then I ended up getting a D in my cognitive psychology class, which was really hard. Um, and so I ended up having to retake that class because I was like, a D is not going to cut it. Like, C's get degrees, but D's don't. And if you want to go to graduate school or you're planning to get a higher education degree, you cannot get D's. You cannot even get C's. I don't think you should even be able to. I don't think it would be good on your transcript to have C's, but you know what? I guess C's get degrees sometimes. So that's what ended up happening with moi. So I graduated May 13 of 2017. And then I was still working at my childcare job. I still am working. And I had applied to this mental health facility. I'm not going to name it. I'm not going to say the name of the place because I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get like, you know, backlash. I thought the job was gonna be different from what I had signed up for, and then I worked there for about 2 months, and then I ended up quitting because um, one of the two reasons why. One, I had just gotten my license. So I had taken. I'm gonna like go off on a tangent for like just a split second. I had taken driver's ed since I was 16. Um, I took me a long time to finish and go through driver's ed completely because I was in martial arts. I had a lot of homework. I had college classes and high school classes, and I was in martial arts. So, and I was also going to church. So I had so many things going on that it was so hard to make time for me to go back to driver's ed and finish the course. I remember my driver's ed instructor, um, I hope I don't get her in trouble for saying this. I don't even remember her name, but I was in the driver's ed class and we were taking the test to get the permit. And that test is really long. If you've ever taken it, it's like over 100 questions. I was not even halfway through. And my instructor was like, "Hey, I gotta go." Like, and I'm like, "I'm not even done." And she got my test and literally gave me 100, which I thought was cool. But I'm like, is this legal? Because like, I don't think it's legal. But anyways, I got my permit, so I was able to drive with an adult in the car, and then I was scheduled to like start doing my driving hours. And at the time, I'm from Texas, so the state of Texas at that time when I was 16 required at least 20 hours of driving with an adult in the car with someone that had a valid driver's license. So I would practice with my parents, I would practice with other people, and then I didn't get to do the actual driving hours at the driving school until I was like 18. And by that time, it was still very hectic because I was finishing up high school, and also I was already, going to my college classes and doing that. So my schedule was just very, very hectic, and it took me a long time. And the first time I took my driving test, I failed it literally because the driving instructor that was with me in the car was like, "You did a rolling stop, you didn't stop." And I'm like, there was literally no one in the way, so I went for it. And you told me that. Anyways, so I ended up obviously like retaking my test, but I had to wait 3 months. The DMV takes forever. Uh, but yeah, you have to sign up on the website or you have to call them and you have to tell them to put you on the waiting list, which is like 3 months long, depending on which DMV you go to, what state you're in, whatever the dealio is. But that was the case for me. I took it in another city and I ended up passing it my second time, which thank the Lord. But I was only 19 at the time. I think I was about to turn 20 like 2 months later. And so I ended up getting that job at that mental health facility like probably I graduated in May. So 5 months after I had graduated college, I got that job. And obviously, the job entailed me driving to certain places because it was a lot of commute. Like it was a lot of commuting because it was a case management job, and basically what that entails is like social work. Like you're looking at uh, you have clients and you're looking at their medical history, their files, you're giving them their medication, you're giving them their doctor's appointments, you're doing crisis screening sometimes. So I got trained to do that. The training was so fast. So I got hired on October 30th. I remember that. I think it was like a Monday, I think. And so, yeah, like they started training us. The training was going so quick. And by the time it was like December, like we were already like scheduled to like actually like start working with clients. And I started getting all these clients. I started dumping like 30, 40 clients on me, and I was freaking the frick out because I was just like a fairly new driver. Like I knew how to drive, but I was a fairly new driver, and for that job, I had to get on the expressway like literally every day, and that gave me so much anxiety, and just not knowing who my clients were and what conditions they were in, because I had people that were homeless and whatnot. And it's like, where do you even go to meet these people? Like, you know? And I would come home every single day anxious and crying and telling my parents, like, I'm grateful for this job. Like, it kind of relates to what I went to school for, but I don't want it anymore. So I ended up quitting in December. Like, don't do this. I don't recommend this, you guys. But I quit like literally. We didn't get like a full week for Christmas break. We just got like 2 or 3 days off. I think it was like 2 days, and then we had to come back the following day, uh, like literally right after Christmas. Um, and so I was at a breaking point at that time, and I was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't work here anymore. Like I just don't want to deal with the responsibility. And it's going to sound like stupid of me, but it's like, well, that's your job. That's what you have to deal with. But I didn't think that's what it was. I initially thought it was going to be an office job. I didn't think there was going to be so much commuting to different like cities and places, and that like really 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 scared me. And so I ended up again, don't do this, but my supervisor was on Christmas break. So what I ended up doing was I ended up writing a resignation letter, um, and then I printed it out there at work, and I turned it in. And I said that I was resigning effective immediately, which means like right then and there. Like I didn't give them a 2 week. Most employers require a 2 week notice. And the reason why there's a 2 week notice, in case like you want to get rehired or whatnot, there's a possibility for that. But because I didn't give him a 2 week notice, I would not be eligible for rehire, but which was fine by me because working there gave me a lot of anxiety. I just did not like the way they were treating these people, and I could go on and on and on and on and on and talk about the different practices that occurred in that facility, but I'd rather not do that because I don't want to get in trouble. And that is a podcast topic for another episode, and my thoughts on like mental health and medication and all that stuff. I could do a whole entire episode dedicated to that. But yeah, that job was so stressful, so demanding. The pay was okay, like it was pretty decent, but like it wasn't like spectacular. um you know. And so yeah, so I ended up quitting, and I felt stupid because in a way that was like the first real like actual job that I got straight out of college, and I was really like blessed and grateful, but like at the same time I wasn't ready for it. um yeah. But anyways, okay, so now we're going to talk about my graduate career. So again, going back to fall of 2016, I was already thinking about the GRE. I took my first GRE around November. Um, I hadn't studied for it. I signed up for it. The GRE, depending on where you live, where you're from, is around roughly like $200, $205. It just depends. And then there's some schools that will require an additional subject test, and that is an extra $100 if you want to take that, more or less wherever you're from. That's how much it costs. So it's a very costly test. Like, and you know, there's times where my test would end up getting like rescheduled and stuff, and I had to take it somewhere really far away, and just it was just a whole thing. I ended up not studying for it the first time because I was like, I'm still in college, the information's still fresh. I did all right. I did okay. I took it the second time like maybe a year after I had graduated college. And then the third time I took it last year in 2019. And honestly, the third time, this is going to sound ironic. So the first 2 times I did not study for the GRE whatsoever at all. Depending on what graduate program or what program you're going into, you will either take the GRE subject test, the GMAT, the MCAT, the LSAT, the NCLEX, whatever it is that you need to take for, any like higher education program. For me, it was the GRE. And if I had wanted to apply to other universities, probably going to be the GRE and the GRE subject test, which basically tests you specifically on what you went to school for. Anyways, so yeah, I did not study for the first 2 times that I took that test, and I studied the third time, the last time that I took it, which was last year. I dedicated 4 months, 3 to 4 months of studying. I bought like a GRE study book and I used it to study. It had like online little modules where you could go in there and use the book and also do the online work. And so I did that. And then I ended up taking the test in February because my deadline for applying to graduate school was in like March. So I had like over a month, left. And I had pretty much everything prepared for graduate school. Um, I had all my recommendation letters. I had all this settled down. I had my statement of purpose, my personal statement, all that stuff that you need to get prepared for graduate school. I had it all. I was just waiting those to take the test. And so the deal is when you go in there to take the GRE, it's usually at a testing site. They give you a little key and there's like little lockers where you can put in your stuff. You cannot bring anything whatsoever. You cannot even bring bottled water. It has to stay in the designated area where they tell you to put your things. You cannot bring a calculator. You cannot bring anything. All you can bring is a type of identification, your driver's license, confirmation that you're taking the tests. And that is basically it when you go in there to take the test. The test is 4 hours long. I think there's like 4 to 5 sections. I don't quite remember anymore. It's been like a year since I've taken it. But yeah, there's like a math, there's a reading, there's a writing section. I don't remember if there was a science section. There might have been, but I don't quite remember. But yeah, the test is time. You have 4 hours to do it. I would do it in 2 hours because I just wanted to get the heck out of there. It had been my third time, and I was like, I just don't want to take this test anymore. It's too expensive. And uh, even though I needed for graduate school, I was fed up. It was such an annoying test. It felt like the SAT and ACT all over again. So yeah, I took that test. I ended up actually doing worse the third time around, and my best score was probably the first time around. I guess because everything was just still so fresh in my memory, and I had just graduated college, that it made sense that I would do, better the first time instead of the third time around. And so, flash forward to now, um, or no, I'm sorry. I took the GRE. The GRE take the GRE test takes about 2 weeks approximately to get your results back. Once you get them back, they'll usually send you an email and you can click the link and there's like a PDF and it lets you see your GRE score. And I was not happy about it. I did not get the GRE score that I was supposed to get for the program that I was applying to. And I ended up getting rejected. I was really, really like distraught and bummed out that I didn't get into that graduate program. And I thought I was seriously going to get in because I have research experience. I have a little bit of clinical experience because I worked at that mental health facility. I have a lot of work experience. I knew a lot of the faculty and a lot of the professors. One of the professors I did research with wrote me a recommendation letter. So I just thought that I was going to get in because of all that stuff. My GPA was okay. It wasn't like the absolute best, but it was decent. And I just thought I was going to get in. And lo and behold, I didn't. And I felt like an absolute failure for about a year. And then this year I applied and the Lord answered my prayers and I got into graduate school. Um so yeah. in a nutshell, that's what's been going on right now. Okay, so we were talking about graduate school. So flash forward to, or let's go back. So I was only 19 when I started applying to graduate school. I applied to two schools. I think it was one school. I applied to the same school twice, 1 year after the other. Um, and I didn't get in because of my GRE scores. And it really sucks when a lot of schools tell you that they're going to do a holistic review, which is basically that they're going to look at absolutely everything. They're going to look not just at your GRE score, but they're going to look at your GPA. They're going to look at what classes are equivalent to their curriculum. They're going to look for if you did research experience, if you have any experience in the field that you are studying in. They're going to look for stuff that stands out. And I feel like I had those things, and they just did not take it into consideration. Um, if you're curious as to what program I'm applying to, I've been applying to clinical psychology programs. I want a master's in clinical psychology. So there's two main differences. There's an MS and an MA. The MS is a Master's of Science, and it's more science and research based. And the MA is a Master's of Arts, which is typically more lenient, more liberal. There's more leeway into the type of electives and classes that you can take, the type of interest that you can take. It's less rigorous, I feel, because it's not as research based as the MS. In the MA, if you're going into psychology, for example, you could get an MA in counseling, in family therapy, in Christian counseling, in social work, just about everything. Um, and the MA again is a little less uh rigorous, a little less research based. And so I didn't want to go that route because I knew that I did not want to be a counselor. I think and I've mentioned this before, I think counseling is a great profession. It's valuable work that they do, but there's only so much that their expertise is limited to. A lot of counselors don't have clinical training. Some do, but a lot of them don't. They can't assess and diagnose and treat disorders. They can only do surface level things assess basic assessments and whatnot, and building that uh, client to clinician rapport, which is very important. You always want to gain your client's trust when you're doing therapy, when you're doing anything that is people related. It's incredibly important. But yeah, I didn't want to go that route because I did research my last year as an undergrad, and I really, really loved it. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with being in the laboratory. I got to work with rats, and that was really cool. We did a study on anorexia and whether it was caused or if it was something innate, or if it could be produced based on the outcomes that we were dealt with. But anyways, yeah, that's just the route I decided to go with, the MS. And I actually also I have a BS right now, which is a bachelor's of science. So I took more science courses in my undergrad, and there was a BA option, but I didn't really care for it because, again, I wasn't in the mindset of just doing counseling. If you want to do just counseling, I mean, that's great. Awesome. But I feel like there's already so many counselors, and there needs to be a higher demand for psychologists and just good psychologists in general that are actually going to help and assess their clients and do the research and find out what works best for their clients and not just what works best for their insurance companies, because unfortunately that happens way too often. And then, that's where it stops and they end up getting a referral to go see a psychiatrist and get on medication. And that's a whole other topic again that we can talk about in a different episode. But yeah, like that's what I wanted to do. So flash forward now, I'm 23. I graduated college at 20. It took me 3 years to finally get into graduate school. And the way I found out about this graduate school that I applied to and that I'm going to be taking classes with is actually through a friend of mine named Colton. Colton, shout out if you're listening to the podcast. He is also doing psychology, and he recommended this university. And I was a little skeptical because it is a Christian university, and typically a lot of like religious based schools, their curriculum is very sometimes heavily based on religion and theology and stuff like that. And I did not want that. I wanted the most unbiased education possible. So I wanted uh, the scientific route, not the religious route. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with being a Christian psychologist, but I prefer to separate the two, and that's the route I chose to take because I feel like my patients and my clientele will be more well-rounded instead of me branding myself as a Christian psychologist. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that is what you want to do, if that is what you feel called to do, more power to you. Absolutely more power to you. But I just really liked the science aspect of it. I like the research. I really, really love research. I can't stress that enough. I think research is an awesome thing. Even if you're not going the research route necessarily, or if you're planning to do counseling, I think it's still kind of important to get your feet wet a little bit and try to just see it from that aspect and see how you can possibly incorporate some of that into, what you're going to be going into. I think research is just so valuable and important, and it could just make so many more clinicians uh, better at their job and better at, just being faithful and loyal and understanding with their clients. But yeah, that's a different thing. So he told me to apply to this school, and it's called Regent University. It's a Christian school. It's accredited by the APA. So that's one of the biggest things that I was looking for when applying to graduate school. I think in general, whether you're doing psychology, social work, if you're going to law school, you want that school to be accredited, especially if you're doing it online. And I know a lot more people now are doing their education online. It's become a huge phenomenon. And so, accreditation is just a huge thing because you don't want to, you know, pay so much money and then realize that you can't even get a job right after you finish your degree. That basically means that your degree was for nothing because it has no accreditation, and you do not want that. But yeah, so I applied in January. I was hearing back from them around like 2 weeks after that I had applied, or 1 week after. They were already contacting me. And then I found out I got in February. And yeah, we've been on this little journey ever since. And I'm just so happy that I finally got into graduate school because it's been something that I've been yearning for 3 years now. And, my efforts finally paid off. And I'm really excited to be starting this week with graduate school. I know it's going to be rigorous and challenging, but I'm ready for it. I'm only taking 2 classes because I also work part time. Um, but yeah, like I'm just really excited to get back into school and writing papers and continuing my education. because once I get my master's, I can start working in my field. And I chose, so my specific master's is called the Masters of Science in Psychology with doctoral preparation. Basically, what that entails is that it's a master's degree that's science based. I just want to say one last thing. Because I've been going through it and I have already made an episode on my mental health, but just want to say that if you are going through rough patches with your mental health, if you are suffering from anxiety or depression or anything that you are going through, I just want to say that you're loved, you're valued, your emotions are valid, your feelings are valid, and I cannot promise you that it will get better, but what I can promise you is that you will come out victorious. There's people out there that love and that care about you. There's mental health professionals if you need to reach out to them. I will be putting resources in the description of this episode if you need to look up some resources, but just try to talk to someone and try to allow them to be there for you and keep you accountable because it's really hard and in this world nothing is getting easier. There's constant chaos everywhere. It doesn't help that we're just surrounded by so much of it, and it really breaks our spirits. So if you're going through something, um, you will get through it. You will get through it. You will persevere. You will be strong. And if you need someone to talk to, even though I'm going through a lot of stuff at the same time with my mental health, you can always call the voice message number. If you have my number personally, you can call me or text me. You can DM me on Instagram, on Twitter. Um, you can DM me on Facebook if you have me on there. And as always, I just want to say go forth, prosper, and God bless. Bye.